A kid is sitting at the dinner table. The food is getting cold. Nobody said a word about phones tonight, but the phone is already in their hand, screen glowing under the table, thumb moving before the brain even decides to move it. Across the room, a parent watches this and thinks the same thing every parent thinks. What is wrong with my kid? But that question is wrong, because nothing is wrong with your kid. Something was built on purpose to do exactly this. If you've ever stood in a doorway watching a child ignore you for a screen, you know this feeling. If you've ever caught yourself doing the same thing as an adult, you know this feeling too. You're not here because you think your kid is broken. You're here because you want to understand what's actually happening inside that small, developing brain. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it, in a good way. This isn't a lecture. This is the wiring underneath the behavior. Here's the first piece. Every notification, every like, every new message is a tiny dopamine hit. Dopamine isn't the chemical of pleasure, it's the chemical of anticipation. It fires right before the reward, not during it, which is why the checking itself feels almost as good as finding something good. Now here's what makes it dangerous instead of just enjoyable. The reward isn't predictable. Sometimes there's a message, sometimes there's nothing. That unpredictability is called intermittent reinforcement, and it's the exact same mechanism that keeps people pulling a slot machine lever for hours. A 2023 study tracking middle school-aged children found that higher smartphone use was directly linked to lower physical activity and measurable changes in cognitive performance, slower reaction times, more difficulty staying focused. The phone wasn't just taking their attention, it was reshaping their day. Here's the second piece, and it's the one most people miss. A teenager's brain has a reward system that lights up fast and hard, faster in many ways than an adult's. But the part of the brain that says, okay, that's enough, put it down, the prefrontal cortex, doesn't finish developing until the mid-20s. So you've got a gas pedal that's fully installed and a brake that's still being built. That's not a discipline problem. That's a construction timeline. Imagine handing someone a car with a perfect engine and telling them the brakes will be ready in 10 years. You wouldn't call it reckless driving, you'd call it physics. So here's the reframe, and it matters. We've been told this is about weak willpower, lazy kids, no discipline. That's the story everyone repeats. But that story is wrong. Kids aren't failing some moral test. They're responding exactly how a developing brain is supposed to respond to a system engineered by some of the smartest behavioral designers on the planet. Not weakness, engineering. Not a character flaw, a brain doing precisely what it evolved to do, pointed at something it was never built to resist. If you think your kid, or honestly yourself, fits this, you already know it. That recognition is worth something. Stick around, because the next part changes how you see the whole picture. But here's where we have to be honest, because this isn't a free pass. There's a real difference between a kid who uses a phone to connect, laugh with friends, watch something that makes them happy, and then puts it down, and a kid who can't put it down, who gets anxious, irritable, almost panicked when it's taken away. One version is a tool, the other version is a leash. So ask the real question. Does the phone add something to their life, or has it quietly become the only thing that feels good in their life? Because one is connection, the other is dependency, and that distinction is the whole point. This isn't about shame, for the kid or for you. Understanding why something happens doesn't mean approving of where it leads. You can hold both of those at once, compassion for the brain doing what brains do, and honesty about when it's gone too far. What you've just understood is something most adults never get told. Your kid isn't lazy, and you're not failing as a parent because a glowing rectangle is winning some days. You're both up against a system built by people who study attention for a living. Seeing that clearly is the first real power you have here. Not guilt, not another rule taped to the fridge, just clarity about what you're actually dealing with. That clarity changes the way you respond, the way you talk about it, the way you stop blaming a kid for losing a fight that was rigged from the start. You're not raising a broken child. You're raising a human brain in an environment it didn't evolve for, and now you know exactly why. Tell me, do you think this is mostly on the kids or mostly on the apps designed to hook them? Drop your answer below, because the comments on this one always split right down the middle. And if this surprised you, the next video on child psychology goes even deeper into what's happening behind the screen, the part most parents never see coming. You're going to want to watch that one before you put the phone down tonight.